So this organisation was started in 1935 by Doris Syfret, who's a spinster, and decided that she needed to do something because of the Great Depression. So she opened the service dining rooms due to the Great Depression. And one of the very interesting things is that there was a man called Mr. Irvin and another man called Mr. Johnson who also hit the hard times and started coming to eat here. And obviously they were fishermen and they were unable to do the fishing that they wanted to do. And when they finally became IMJ, they never forgot the meals that they had here. And since 1935, every single week in every single year, we have received 60 kilos of fish, fresh from the harbour, off the ships on a Wednesday. So Wednesdays is our busy day. Our people on the street know that they usually get fish on a Wednesday, and then the queue goes right around the block. Yesterday we had 256 people to sit down and eat. On average we're reaching about 220 people a day at 11:30. We have a sit-down meal. People are encouraged to say thank you for their meal. We often hear in the queue when they're waiting, remember, no thank you, no food, so they know that they have to say thank you. They either pay with R1 or a token, and if they don't have R1 or a token, then the Gina who serves the food at the counter will call me, and if I'm not around with Sudha, and say, can we give this person a meal, and then we just usually say, yes, we can. Obviously, if we know that they've been drinking at Yummies down the road, then they need to ask a friend for R1. We expect them to eat with dignity and sit at the tables and eat properly. We're the only organisation in the CBD that is providing fresh, cold, ice-cold drinking water to the homeless community. Since 2018 in February, all the tapeheads were disconnected because of the drought, and the homeless cannot access drinking water outside. We also provide ablution facilities where they can use the toilet, and the token system has worked where if they go and shower at the Hope Exchange, which used to be called the Carpenter Shop, if they shower they can get a token and pay for their food with that token. So I can actually count every day and see how many homeless people on the streets had a shower, or how many homeless people on the streets worked in the streetscapes garden, how many had a test, like a TB test and HIV test. So on average, about 90 people are going to the Hope Exchange before they come in here, and that means that 90 people have showered and washed and brushed their teeth. So we sometimes also provide toiletries for that. We have acupuncture on a Thursday morning. We have trained practitioners who come in, give up their time, 2 different practitioners every Thursday. Quite a few of the women who live on the street go for acupuncture. We've got beautiful beds up there, and it's a time for them to just lie there and maybe have a little bit of a massage and to relax, which is very good for the women who are being abused on the street. A lot of abuse on the streets between partners, women and their partners. It's really bad. So that they're encouraged to say thank you for their food, and we want them to know that the thing of I didn't know and I've forgotten doesn't work here. Every child is taught when they're very young to learn to say thank you. We want them to eat with dignity. The thing of sitting on the pavement eating is out, as they are encouraged to really enjoy their meal. It's also time for them to get together, to feel safe and to chat. So we allow the women to come in first, the women with the children, and the women and the children can collect the food. The children also get a plate of food, and they really are encouraged to sit in the kiddies' corner with the gate closed. The men that come in afterwards really get irritable if they've got a child jumping around and scooting around on the little car. Once the women are in and they're seated, we allow the elderly, frail men in and the transgender group in, and they come through the same entrance, and once they're seated, we open another entrance for the crowd of men. And once they're on the property, we lock the other gates. We can't have the 2 gates open at the same time. Otherwise, the people that are sitting here will eat their fish, leave their rice, run around, get into the queue and come around and around. It causes waste, and also some people then don't have access to food because there's nothing left. Then you find those people that haven't eaten looking in the bin, trying to eat out of the bin. So we are now only allowing 1 meal, whereas when I arrived, you could have as many meals as you wanted. That's stopped. If we have seconds, they are very honest. They queue up and they'll say, I'm waiting for seconds. If there's seconds, they can have seconds. That's also very tricky for the transgender. You know, people keep saying, get into a shelter, get into a shelter. Where do the transgender population go? when they stay in a shelter, do they sleep in the men's dormitory or do they sleep in the women's dormitory? When they go to the ablutions, to the showers, do they use the women's showers or the men's showers? So really, really a huge problem for the transgender community living on the streets. I think they've always been transgender, but they're more sort of they're not shy to say that they're transgender, and they will stand in the queue and they will wear their dresses and their makeup or whatever and say, if they're new, they'll say, I'm transgender, and they actually get into the queue with the women. That's how we work it. Yeah. Well, a lot of the homeless communities seem to go home, wherever home is in winter, because they really cannot take the cold elements. So you'll say, oh, well, where is Molly today? She's gone home to her mother. A lot of the homeless women have got children that are living in the townships with grandmothers that are looking after them. Quite a few of the homeless are on the street, and some of them are sex workers, and that's how they send money back to the grandmothers and the mothers looking after the babies and the children. We've got about 700 homeless people living in the Cape Town CBD. If there's some kind of a problem inside, most of the majority of the homeless people will not allow that. They will see to it that that person either leaves or behaves, or that they are very protective, and they like to have structure. They like to know that everybody's following rules and that people aren't pushing in. When I arrived, there was quite a sort of a rugby scrum to push in, really quite terrifying. Now we have them queuing up, and we work with the yellow card and the red card like the soccer. And they, at first weren't saying anything. Now they'll say, Auntie Karen, he's pushing in, give him a yellow card. Auntie Karen, this is the third time he's pushed in, give him a red card. So we don't really have any problems. They love having music. They love listening to Lionel Richie, that kind of music. And so we have somebody who's donated a ghetto blaster, and we have music most times that we serve food at 7:30 and then at 11:30, sit-down meal. They're very into the politics. You hear them talking about Zuma and Ramaphosa. They'll talk about the soccer. They don't talk about the rugby. They're not really into rugby. Most of them will say, thank you very much, and I'm very grateful. If they get real mince for a change, you'll hear them saying, this is original mince, and they're very grateful if they get something like that. They just generally talk about cold weather now, where they're going to sleep. A lot of them have moved into the safe spaces, which is at the Cullenborg, under the Cullenborg Bridge, which is just a pallet and no walls or things like that, but it's safer than sleeping outside. Jo Maxwell, I don't know if you know her, she's been involved many, many times making sleeping bags. She's just dropped off 50 sleeping bags made out of newspaper and plastic. We'll start giving those out. They're waterproof and they're warm. The silver shiny ones that were being given out a few years ago don't work with the homeless. They don't like to be seen, and they can be seen from a long way off. They also make a terrible noise. They crinkle and make a noise when you turn over. And they also get so hot that they sweat in them. So the newspaper and plastic ones are ideal. And Jo's made them wide enough for a mother and a child to fit in. And they can carry their stuff around in these bags during the day. Woolworths have also just done a blanket drive and donated quite a few blankets, so we'll also start giving those out. At the moment we're asking for fruit, maybe some citrus. We did have somebody from Canada who used to bring citrus once a week, and that they really like. They love fruit, something that they don't just get. We are looking for certain things like playing cards, so that if it's raining, rather than the queue outside where they're getting wet, they can come and sit quietly and play cards. We've started a reading corner if people want to donate books. Quite a few of the elderly homeless like to read the newspaper. So newspapers, if they're not sort of too old, like a week old is fine, that can also be donated. And then we're also trying to continue with a sock drive. People on the streets at night when it's cold and raining are not going to care if their socks don't match. So we're asking people to please donate used socks, even if they are unmatching. We can give those out. We're also trying to collect beanies, and we're always in need of toiletries, especially feminine hygiene. and razors for the men. People tend to forget to donate razors, thinking that homeless people don't want to shave and look respectable. They do. They often ask for razors so that they can get cleaned up, so that they can go for a job interview looking smart. We have TB HIV care who come once a month and they do testing upstairs. Recently they've just done research with sex workers, which was quite an eye-opener. They finished doing that research and they'll come back and just do the TB and HIV testing once a month, also usually on a Thursday. Quite a few of them have been in prison. They get released. The families can't afford another mouth if they're not bringing in money. If it's somebody who's moved in and can't provide 20 rand for electricity for the day, or bring a pocket of potatoes or a kilo of potatoes, they can't stay. So they are on the street. Some of them are wanted. Some of the families actually come and look for their family, saying, I'm looking for so-and-so, he's gone missing. But it's difficult. From here, we hope that maybe they would get into a shelter, a first phase shelter, like one of the havens. From there, maybe a second phase shelter, like at the Hope Exchange, where they're earning a little bit of money, living more independently, able to pay their rent rather than shelter fees, and maybe then become reunified with the family, or even just reintegrated into society. But you also can't expect a 60-year-old to move in with the family. Maybe he should be thinking of being independent and living on his own somewhere. But it's difficult, very difficult. Oh, the women are far, far worse. The men know. They always say, Auntie Karen, it must be a woman who's left her plate. And I actually pick up the plate and I say, now who does this belong to? And all the men will shout out, a lady, because it's always the women that leave their plates and their forks on the table. The men are far better at bringing their plates and putting it in the crate and putting their fork in the soapy water. So on this side, usually of this side of the dining room, most of the men sit and the women sit there. And we've got somebody who actually watches and they still leave their plates on the table. We've got 4 registered NGOs that we support. I've just done home visits just to check that what we're supporting is what we're supposed to be supporting. They're in Nyanga and Gugulethu, and another one in Mitchell's Plain, and another one in Factoryton. So they are registered NGOs with the Department of Social Development, and we cook another 500 meals a day to go to these 4 different NGOs. So they won't all come on the one day. We'll do, say, one organisation is called Masijungi. They will come on a Monday and a Thursday to collect. And then Pati Sinani will come on another day. So we do about 500 extra meals in these big Falcon pots that go off-site. So we're doing about 800 meals a day put together. So if you get arrested for aggressive begging, urinating in public, you can choose to work in the gardens, run by Streetscapes. It's a part of Kolisa, which is an anti-crime program. You can choose to work in the gardens rather than just sitting around waiting for your court date to come up. And then it's also a very good developmental program. They've now got a rehab centre going in Kales River, where the people that have decided they want to get off the streets and stop their drug problem, they go and work there, and so they're moving slowly into society that way. And it's run by a person called Yesi Leitinen. So Streetscapes, the garden up at the top there's also one at Trafalgar High. They are encouraging the people that work there to go around to the different coffee shops, and the coffee shops are very good at donating coffee grounds and the eggshells, and it goes back to the garden, and then there's some people that work and turn it into compost. And then the little coffee shops in turn are also buying things like basil and the rocket and things that are in season from Streetscapes to serve in their little kitchens. There are quite a few coffee shops in the area. Tea bags also. Tea bags, coffee grounds, eggshells, anything like that. But even if the gates are closed at Streetscapes, if they're down here having lunch, they could always just leave it outside the gate, next to fruit and veg, just up above us. So they don't pay for their water. They've got an aircon at fruit and veg that actually has a pipe leading into a JoJo tank on the Streetscapes property so that they can water their plants in summer from the JoJo tank. So I suppose if you did this at home, the aircon, you could maybe try that trick at home and see if your aircon pipe can go into a JoJo tank, and you can maybe save some water for your own vegetables at home. I ordered the tokens from some kind of printing place, and I keep them, and then the Hope Exchange, Fachma, who works at the ablutions at the Hope Exchange, will come up and say she needs tokens, and I'll give her the orange ones, and she uses the orange. And then there's the streetscapes, which is the little garden up at near Fruit and Veg. They come and collect, they've got somebody, sort of the leader, who'll come and collect the blue, and then they get the blue after they've worked in the garden. So I can also work on Google Sheets and see 90 people had a shower today, 20 people worked in the garden, 4 had an HIV test. So it's quite a good way of just keeping track. And we spend about 4,000 Rand a year ordering new tokens because they get lost during the year. So somebody, if they wanted to do a once-off donation, could actually offer to pay for the plastic tokens to be made. Don't overlap and overlook. If it's already in existence, just contribute to. You don't have to do it to us. You can choose. You can choose the Hope Exchange and give toiletries, or you can give to us food. But don't overlap and overlook. So don't start another soup kitchen. Unless you maybe want to do it on a Sunday morning, when we don't open. No, we're not open on the weekend, so we're here from Monday to Friday. The Hope Exchange do a meal on a Saturday, sort of breakfast, and they do, not them, but they have volunteers that go in and also do something on a Sunday. Consider linking up with some organisation that's already doing it on the weekends, for example, the Hope Exchange. They could actually just go and purchase the ingredients if they wanted to do that, and then drop off the ingredients, or they could donate the money and say specifically what they want it for. I want to help with the upgrade of the ablutions, or I want this to go towards the food at 11:30, or I want it to go to coffee at 7:30 in the morning. We are spending about 15,000 Rand on food a month buying from wholesalers, besides the stuff that we get donated. So that's the buying in bulk, like the samp, the rice. We're buying 25 kilo packs. So, and look, although we're getting 256 people a day and they're paying 1 Rand, we're not getting that 1 Rand. Most of the people are paying in tokens. So we're ending up with, say, 60 Rand from the meal, and the rest are all in the plastic tokens. So we spend quite a lot of money on dry, perishable goods. No, they can come. It's best to just find out which day I need help, because I have got sort of regular volunteers that come. But also the staff, if anybody wants to think of a specific day, and I don't want to do the Mandela Day on the 18th of July. It gets frenetic. We cannot cope. The homeless people know that and they run from shelter to NGO, and so rather do a lead up, maybe 2 weeks before Mandela Day or 2 weeks after, to do something like drop off sandwiches, do 60 sandwiches for your 60 minutes on another day for the coffee morning. But you could also do something for our Christmas lunch that we do here, which will have sort of between the 17th and the 14th of December, or something at Easter time. You could maybe buy chocolate eggs for the people, or hot cross buns, or help with making the pickled fish that we like to do on the Thursday before Good Friday. So, there are lots of little special days that you could come and help. And I'm telling you that you've got to be so sort of strict with the manners and things, otherwise it becomes uncontrollable, pushing and fighting and wanting seconds and thirds. Well, sometimes it does get a bit sort of more than rowdy. There might be a bit of a physical fight. That's a bit risky, a bit unpleasant. Most of the time, the rest of the people that are eating here will try and control it. But if he's a gang member and they know who he is, and they might just sit back and watch, that can be quite a challenge. We've had a couple of fights in here. One guy was stabbed while waiting in the queue. That was also something. We've had to call the ambulance a few times, not only for fights, but for epilepsy. A guy had a terrible epileptic fit. Another guy had an asthma attack. And I'm telling you, those ambulances are here within 2 minutes. They are marvelous, really fantastic. I just phone 107 and they say, what is your emergency? And they put me through to the ambulance people, and while you're waiting, they tell you what to do. Put him on his side, do this, do that. Very good. Socks, beanies. They can donate the blankets to the Hope Exchange, because that's where they go and shower. They could give me a few toiletries, but also toiletries to the Hope Exchange. And then if they could donate fruit to us, yogurt, they love to have fruit salad, and maybe juice instead of water. Just small little things like that would make a big difference. Sandwiches for the 7:30 coffee morning. peanut butter sandwich is fine. Look, if it's going to be the 7:30 thing, maybe 60 sandwiches.
Okay.
60, we get about 60 people in. But don't bother with sandwiches for the 11:30 meal. That's, yeah. We are open at 7 in the morning. They can always just drop them off on their way.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a guy down the road who owns a panel beating shop, and he often drops off 4 loaves of bread. Somebody else will drop off a litre of oil. That's all very welcome. All goes towards it. The lottery we got before I arrived, quite a long time ago. So we rely very heavily on donations in kind, like I&J. We get from UCook. They give us the food that isn't collected or it's ordered and not bought. And then we get from food lovers across up there, we get day-old bread and day-old rolls. So, and then the engine garage on the corner, Mr. and Mrs. Wilson, they give us a tank full of petrol free of charge for our driver, which is a huge help. There's lots of different ways. Sometimes we're surprised when we find out that somebody who's sort of really been famous or has had a very, very good career and a lovely family is on the street. That surprises us sometimes. I mean, I have somebody who's a famous ballerina who's living on the streets. I have an advocate who's living on the streets. I had an editor of a newspaper when I was working at the Hope Exchange. Another thing that's quite worrying is the amount of families that are actually sleeping in cars. Apparently Gordons Bay Harbour has been made into a safe space at night for cars. Families sleeping in cars all along the harbour as long as they leave in the morning. We have quite a few families around here now sleeping in cars. They've lost everything else. Nothing really surprises me. I suppose it's because I've been working with the people for so long. There's some of them say, but Auntie Karen, don't you remember me from the Claremont Haven? I say, well, that was, like 6 years ago. And they said, yes, but, you were there for 19. And I think, yeah, I was. But some of them I remember, some of them I don't. So first, you're on the street. Then you can choose to go into safe spaces, which is just a safe space. From there, you can choose to go to a shelter like one of the havens, which is a dormitory situation. You pay R7 a day. If you haven't got the R7, you've got to work in lieu of that, maybe prepare the vegetables or something. You can stay there for between 3 and 6 months. You see the social worker. She tries to reintegrate you into society. If you get a better paying job and you're a bit more stable, you move into the second phase. Second phase is at the Hope Exchange. Little 8 in a unit rather than a dormitory, 2 to a bedroom. You do your own cooking. There's no kitchen that provides the food, and then from there you are supposed to be reunited with your family or reintegrated into society. We've got a huge problem with drug addiction on the streets. I'd say more of a drug problem than an alcohol problem at this stage. A lot of addiction. And that's what keeps the people on the street. Well, they can't go to family if they've got an addiction, and family don't want them. They've got to bring in some money and stop drugging. We have got a big problem with drugs. I think that's their experiment everybody else is taking. So the 2 drugs at the moment that are quite fashionable are tick and unga, another drug called unga. Some of the guys get quite aggressive when they're on tick. You can actually tell, and then you just sort of ask them to leave. If there's somebody that we know has definitely got TB and isn't taking their treatment, then of course we're all at risk. Then that person is given his plate of food outside and asked to eat outside until once they're on treatment, then we're fine. They can't, and we always have ventilation. You'll never come in here and not find the windows open, because ventilation is very, very important for things like TB. I think once you're homeless, it's very, very difficult to get out of it. I don't encourage this begging at the robots. I was listening to Hassan Khan, he's the CEO of the Haven organisation the other day, and he said people aren't allowed to sleep on the bench, on the beaches or camp on the beaches. It's the same for the pavements. So the people, if they can't go home, then to get into a shelter. And there are field workers that are going around offering that all the time. But then, of course, there are rules at a shelter. They have to be in at 6 o'clock. They can't come in with alcohol. They can't come in with drugs. Also, they can't come in with pets. We have quite a few people coming with pets. So it's easier maybe to stay on the street. It's less responsibility. You don't have to pay your fees. They love their dogs. They love their dogs. And there's one that comes in every day called Macy, and everybody wants to hold Macy. Yeah, no, they're very good with their pets. They love it. Yeah. Especially if some of the women have had their children removed, children have been placed in foster care. Those women have pets, they have dogs. It's something to perhaps hold on to. Got somebody who just had a baby the other day. They gave her cesarean and they've kept the baby in the hospital. She won't cope on the streets. And she's really battling. I'm actually employed here at the service dining rooms as an operations manager, but I have a degree in social work. So I'm fairly new to working at the service dining rooms. Before this, I worked at 2 different shelters and have been involved working with the homeless for about 24 years in total. I studied social work at the University of Witwatersrand in Johannesburg, where I grew up. I did a 4-year honours degree, and then I worked with many different settings. In many different settings, I've worked with child welfare, I've worked with the aged, I've been in private practice, and I've worked with the homeless, and I've decided that homeless is my area. I just love it. I started working with the homeless in 1992 when somebody went on maternity leave at the Haven in Claremont, and she then said she wasn't coming back, and I ended up staying there for 19 years. I then ran the shelter at the Hope Exchange, which is the second phase shelter, for 4 years. I got a bit tired of that and resigned, and then I was offered this position here as the operations manager. It's very rewarding. It's extremely rewarding. 11:30 comes and goes. By 12:30 the people are out, but it's a very satisfying job. And you also cannot keep a diary. You never know what's going to happen. So every day is different. And my staff really take a lot of care into what they prepare. It's not a slap-down dish. Even when they're dishing up, I sometimes say, hurry up, and they do it very carefully. Everybody gets the same portion until all the plates are done, and then we open up. Yeah. They love coming here, and we love coming here as well. It's very satisfying work. Well, I think that everybody that comes is very grateful for the meal. They always know that they know that I'm a social worker, so if they need to see me privately, I have to see them privately in my office. They just to be able to give them something to keep them going and be treated with dignity and respect.